right, so brain spotting is relatively new in the field. So you might just be beginning to hear about it or beginning to be exposed to people who are talking about it. Um, it's a somatic and brain-based trauma processing that works at a deep neurological level. Go ahead, Lee, thank you. It was discovered by Dr. David Grand when he was conducting EMDR with one of his clients who was a competitive figure skater. I wonder if you've heard about this, Megan. Maybe we'll see. She was struggling with a performance block. She was abundantly capable of executing this very complicated maneuver, but over and over and over again, she'd pull out of it before she landed it. And so she was doing EMDR with Dr. Grand for quite a while, and they were unable to completely resolve this. But in one of their EMDR sessions, he happened to notice that as her eye position was moving across the axis, when she got to this particular point in her trauma story where she reconnected with pulling out of that jump, her eyeballs began to wobble. And he noticed that and thought, well, this is different. This is something that we maybe should explore. So instead of continuing with her eye movement, he invited her to hold her gaze in that position where the eyeballs were wobbling, and the trauma processing continued from there. And in that session, both of them realized something significant just shifted here. And she went to the performance arena, did the practice session, landed that jump like the pro that she was. And from there, she went on and was able to compete in that successfully. So they realized after that session, okay, we've got something here. Let's work with this. And that's where he began developing the model. So it's rooted in EMDR, but it's kind of in an adjacent space. We're still working with that neuroplasticity and working towards cognitive restructuring, but it's at a deeper level. We're working more with the mid-cortical and the subcortical brain. Let's see. Okay, so some ways that it's a little bit different from EMDR would be, like I mentioned earlier, you use a fixed gaze position and the client holds their focus in that particular location while they process, sometimes just for moments, sometimes for the entirety of the session. The structure is a lot more flexible. This is not protocol-led like EMDR would be for those of you who are trained in that and familiar with it. It's much more flexible, and the client is leading the pacing, not the clinician. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. The feel of the session is not at all talk therapy, like 1000% not that. It tends to be a really quiet treatment room when we're doing brain spotting. And that's partly because the clinician is refraining from saying much at all because the client's magnificent brain is just zooming faster than we could possibly anticipate or project or reflect. So, I've made the mistake a few times where I'll offer a reflection and the client will look at me like, what are you talking about? That was so last year. They've already moved well beyond what they just said. It's magnificent. Let's see, the best fit for the clients for brain spotting tends to be people who enjoy more of a somatic connection, who enjoy a body-based experience. Brain spotting works really well for content that is pre-verbal. So things that might have happened in earlier years before we had a lot of language online, or also for those traumatic moments where that shock happens and we viscerally experience and encode it before we even have words to do meaning making or compose a narrative around it. I really like it as the clinician because the client does not need to tell a trauma story. They don't need to rehearse details. So we're lowering the risk of kind of re-traumatization in the client and less risk for us as the clinician of the secondary traumatization. So I'm enjoying it a lot. There are a lot of folks who really don't want to come back in, work with a therapist or yet another therapist and start over, all over again, telling the story of my trauma. And this means we don't need to do that. I can just welcome them in and let's go. Just kind of a sample slide of a few different kinds of clinical presentations. PTSD and CPTSD, I use it a lot in that space. Anxiety and depression. It's great for clients who have dissociative experiences when they're in therapy. I'll talk a little bit more there in a moment. Chronic pain, somatic symptoms. It's great for OCD and those intrusive urges. And then, like we talked about earlier, some performance and creativity blocks. A lot of therapists are using this for artists, creatives, theater people. It's pretty cool. So the core premise here is that where you look affects how you feel. This is kind of the Brainspotting slogan. And so what we're doing here is we're working with eye position and the neuronal axis that goes mid and subcortically. So we're finding specific positions in the visual field that are correlated with where activation and stored experiences are held. And it's pretty cool because it bypasses that thinking part of the brain. That neocortex just kind of gets to take a break and relax while we work with those lower regions of the brain. Kind of a way of explaining this is that by default, in the human experience, we use our visual field to orient predominantly. And so we're always using our eyes to scan for information and process that. So when we do brain spotting, we use that ocular system and we turn the scanner, instead of to the external world, we turn that scanning system back internally into the client's brain. And so that scanner is looking for fragments of information, things that got left behind, things that got neuronally connected in a way that's no longer supportive. So the therapist's role is not to really lead and guide that, but more to be really the attuned presence. We talk about how quickly the mind is moving. And so we say that the therapist is meant to stay in the tail of the comet. And that's just a posture of humility that recognizes we cannot possibly anticipate where the client's brain is going to go in their processing. There are something like 1 to 4 quadrillion synaptic connections in the human brain. And I'm not great at math, but I think that means like a million times a billion. It's like a lot, like more stars than we have discovered in the universe. And so because of that complexity, we can't anticipate where the client's brain will go. So we stay in the tail of the comet. Their brain is the head of the comet, leading the processing. And our role is to offer that dual awareness of the attuned presence. We're tracking with their brain, but also with their body, and helping them regulate as they move through the arc of the emotions as they're processing their trauma. Why the subcortical route matters. All right, so we understand that trauma is stored not only in the cortex, but also in the deeper structures where we're holding emotional reactivity and procedural memory and those really essential survival responses. So it's hypothesized that brain spotting is using that visual collicular pathway to access those more direct lines in the limbic and the brainstem networks than what we could really access when we're doing that prefrontal cortex cognitive talk therapy approach. Here's kind of a base level intro to the ways that we find these brain spots when we're doing the therapy. And so there are 3 general ones. Inside window is a best fit for clients who are really able to attune to what's happening viscerally, what's happening somatically, what it's like in their inner experience in their brain and body. So I'll be moving a pointer slowly, slowly, slowly across the visual field, sometimes moving in a grid pattern. And the clients who are using inside window are able to kind of play that you're getting warmer, you're getting colder game with Jennifer, able to sense out, oh boy, now we're really feeling that activation. Yeah, that's where we are. And so we'll find that spot with them sensing it out internally. And then I'll hold the pointer and they'll draw their gaze to hold it there, and we'll support the processing in that way. Other clients are not so much somatically attuned, don't prefer that for different reasons, aren't really connecting in that way, and it's no problem. That means that there's an invitation there for the therapist to then lead how to identify the spot, and we do what's called outside window. So again, I'll invite the client to return to that memory, that distressing moment, the issue that we want to work with, and as I'm pulling my pointer through their visual field, I'm taking responsibility for watching for reflexes that are coming off their nervous system. And so that might be things like a blushing in the cheeks, or a double blink in the eyelid, a dilation of the pupils, maybe a hiccup or a sigh or a catch in the breath. I'm watching for those things and taking responsibility for noticing them and identifying where we are. And then we'll hold that position for the client to continue to process on. Um, One that I'm particularly enjoying lately, and you guys could totally play with in your sessions as well, is called gaze spotting. And this has been really fun because I imagine you've noticed that when clients are telling a story, their eyes are sort of moving around the room, looking at different things, focusing on you, changing directions. And then every now and again, someone will just sort of gaze off into the middle distance. And it's like they're like locked in on a tractor beam. So we invite them to intentionally hold that position. And when they stay on that spot that they were already sort of instinctively drawn to, then we see the processing unfold again, for a moment, for many minutes. It can vary. But you might play with that. It's kind of fun to be able to see where people are instinctively going and invite that in. Okay, so speaking of the inviting you to play with it, David Grand is quoted as saying, "There is no turf in healing. It's all for the good of the cause here." And so he's developed brain spotting in a way that it's a highly permeable model. It integrates so nicely with the other kinds of things that we might specialize or be certified in. Uh, for me personally, I'm pairing it with parts work. It just seems like hand in glove with IFS, and it's very natural and comfortable to do spiritual integration in this as well. To invite the client to surface some spiritual imagery, some scripture, some presence of the Holy Spirit is very natural and comfortable to be able to integrate into this as well. It is a fairly new and evolving approach to psychotherapy. There's a fairly good emerging evidence base. So if you're curious and looking and drilling into the details, there's a lot of information here. But from my personal stance is I'm a little hesitant to say that it's an evidence-based treatment. There are people who are comfortable saying that, and I guess technically it is, but it's pretty small sample sizes in the studies right now, and single variable is hard to kind of work through with what we're doing with brain spotting. But there's an invitation for more like, hey, run a study, try it on your own, let's figure out and let's learn it all together. So it's kind of on that cusp. Technically evidence-based, I would want to honestly say, we're still learning a lot here. So there's more information on brainspotting.com, and Rocky Mountain Brainspotting Institute is our local affiliate. Lots of great trainings offered through them, and certifications are available as well.
Is there like different levels of certification in that?
Yes, Megan. Yes, so there's about 5 different levels, and they also have offshoot specializations. So you could learn like um, a model around OCD, for instance. So there's a lot of really specialized things that you can get additional training in. But I think you could be interested. Yeah. It's very effective with performance blocks. Yeah.
So when you're doing this, like how with EMDR you're like setting up targets.
Yes.
With this, are they thinking about something specific? Like is there like a target, or are they just letting their brain go wherever?
Thank you, Kayla. Yeah, well, you begin with a target, kind of like choosing a trailhead. Where are we interested in working? And so that could be a certain thing that's been like, chronically troublesome for a client. They have a lot of activation around a trauma memory or an event. And so we could be working on something really specific there. And then there are also, lots of circumstances where people come in and just, I've kind of got this niggling sense of dread, and can we work with that? So, it's actually really, pretty flexible where we begin, and it's always fascinating where the client's processing and brain will lead them. So, I find myself having a suspicion like, oh, I wonder if there might be something like X, Y, or Z going on in here. And time and again, I'm totally wrong. It's just remarkable what is held deep within our being that is able to kind of untangle and rise to the surface and be released. So what we're seeing time and again is people come in feeling really stuck in trauma time, and with brain spotting they're able to deeply know that was then and this is now, and I am safe, and I'm really enjoying it.
So when you talked about people it's really good for, so it's
Hmm.
like good for someone who's frozen
Yes.
or
Yeah. Yeah.
someone like they're not able to have any memories before 5. They don't
Yes.
know why.
Yeah.
Like it's those kinds of things.
Certainly. Certainly. Yeah. Yeah.
How do you find the target that?
We're inviting them to bring back up whatever that sensation is. And we're doing that somatic inquiry as well. And then tracking across the visual field, looking for a spot that seems to be associated with it. And then we hold that gaze and we get curious about what comes up behind and beneath it. And particularly when we're looking at pre-verbal trauma, um, people don't necessarily have a lot to say about it. And that's absolutely fine and wonderful. So it can be quite quiet in the treatment room. Occasionally, someone will mutter something or say, oh, this is what I'm seeing, or this is what I'm feeling or realizing. But we really don't need a lot of language and words and meaning making because we're kind of bypassing that neocortex and working with those lower regions of the brain where some of that implicit content is stored and held. Mhm. Yeah.
The gaze keeping, if I
Yeah.
notice, what does that sound like in the moment? Are you saying hold your vision right here and
Yeah.
just sit still? Or, like how are you saying?
Yeah.
Like how would that be queued up? And
Yes.
then are you pausing that and saying, "What are you noticing? Like the EMDR?" Or
Yeah, good, good, good. So there's like a little invitation for psycho ed here in that moment with the client that offers them this opportunity for, hey, I'm learning something here that I can take with me and work on my own throughout the day and throughout the week. So um, I'll say something like, "Hey, client, do you notice that when you're telling me this, your gaze is like way up over my right shoulder? Have you noticed that? All right, like let's just be aware and let's invite you to stay there and do it on purpose and let's get curious about what happens." So, yeah. Um, I wonder if you guys would even want to do like a little experiential just for a moment. It might be a little like wiggy to do it like in this setting, but maybe we'll try it and then you can try it on your own. But so let's just play with that eye position and see if you can even notice that where you look affects how you feel. So bring up something that's just a little bit uncomfortable for you, like suds like 3. Let's not go deep here, folks. We got time constraints, but
we can pay you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So just bring up that memory, that emotion, getting stuck in traffic, something small, and then take a moment for that body scan, just checking in somatically. What are we noticing inside? Where might there be any tension? What's the level of activation? We're not changing it, just gathering that data. And then when you're ready, let's play with it. Bring your eye position to um, your right side of we're in a circle. How about the right, whatever that is for you, side of your visual field. And then return to that same memory and sensation and recheck. And then move your eyes to the opposite side of your visual field. And just be curious, does anything shift for you? So we have a little invitation for the clients like, hey, I can take this home. I don't need to be always in the support of my therapist. When things feel really activating, I can move my eye position to a more supportive place and use that for regulation, or even do some processing on my own between sessions.
I'm curious if this connects to some of the kind of traditional wisdom about like interrogation technique about
Oh,
remember, like recall or
oh.
honesty, right? People have connected eye position to when you're reading
Yes.
articles, remembering things, or creativity, right?
Yeah.
Generating something.
Yeah.
Are there kind of universal locations, or is it all specific to the client?
It's all specific to the client.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's back to that that neuronal network. We don't know where things get kind of stuck and stalled out and wired together. But we do know that our eyeballs and the irises and the retina are just absolutely loaded with synapses and neural tissue that gets deeply connected into the mid and lower brain. And that's that information that we scan our external environment for orienting to, and it gets encoded. So we can use our eye position to unravel that as well.
Do you find clients need multiple sessions?
Yes, yes, yeah. Sometimes there's a lot of release and freedom and kind of aha insight moments that happen in the session, but the processing tends to continue for hours and days. And then people will invariably come back and say, man, I encountered something I did not anticipate, and so let's pivot that direction as well. But it's not like a protocol where we know it's 8 sessions. We just hold it with curiosity and reverence and awe for the beautiful brains that God has given us and the way He's made us to heal and restore.
I was thinking scripturally too. It's the verse I was looking at, but it's fix your eyes on Christ.
Ooh,
right?
I like that,
Your
Melissa.
heart. It's like, so even scripture
Yeah.
is saying that is the focal point.
Ooh,
like that
yeah,
is
great.
what brings you in.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Brain spotting.